All right. I appreciate everybody's time. Welcome to Eretmis Cyber Chat. We do this every Friday night, 7 p.m. Eastern, and we always make sure you are always going to gain something out of this. Just like Freddie, talked about. So Freddie was able to renew his Security Plus without writing the exam. He used his points for attending Eretmis Cyber Chat to get the renewal from CompTIA. So we are going to discuss PCI DSS, the new version of PCI DSS. What are some of the major changes and the fun changes in PCI DSS? Now, if you are new to PCI or you are new to cybersecurity, we are going to break it down and go a bit into the history of PCI, so you have a better appreciation of what we are talking about when it comes to PCI and what the new version is about, and also moving forward as a cybersecurity professional, how that is going to impact you or how it's going to affect you in terms of your how you do your job, right? So I appreciate everybody's time once again. We are starting time now. So today's topic is going to be PCI DSS version 4, what is new, and then also we are going to look at what it means for cybersecurity professionals with these new changes that are coming up. So if you are new to the Eretmis family, I'm Dr. Emmanuel Edu. I'm a former United States Army captain. I'm the CEO of Eretmis Inc., a QSA, PCI QSA company, and I'm a QSA myself. I'm also the founder of Eretmis Academy, that is, offering this cyber chat every Friday. I'm a former professor at University of Maryland Global Campus, and then also CTC. So that is a little bit about me. I'm going to be your facilitator for tonight, as usual. And these are the topics that we are going to be looking at tonight. So for tonight, we are going to look at our cyber news, like we always do every Friday night. And then we are starting a new internship/workshop this month. It'll start on the 26th of August. And then we are starting a new PCI live class also on the 24th. So we will talk more about this as we move forward. Now, we are going to give a background into cybersecurity, into PCI DSS, and then we are also going to look at PCI DSS as a field that you can specialize in also, and why that is a field that you can choose as a choice if you want to specialize in the cybersecurity field, right? And we are going to jump into the difference between or the changes between the old version of PCI DSS and the new version, right? And then we will look at the role. What role are we going to play as security professionals with this new change in PCI that is around the corner? I mean, the change is here, but it is going to fully, go into effect next year, March, and we will look at all those timelines as well. So this is good information for you to keep in your toolbox, even if you are not a PCI subject matter expert or you are not looking to get into PCI, it is still something that you can put in your toolbox because PCI is part of cybersecurity, just like all other frameworks. So as a security professional or aspiring security professional, it's good to make sure you have a broader perspective when it comes to cybersecurity knowledge, right? And a good working knowledge in almost all areas of cybersecurity. So we'll start with our cyber news. Cyber news, in the news, one company is making the headline in the United Kingdom. It's called MPD-FM. So this company, what they did or what they didn't do was that it's like this company is a government contractor. They are a facility management and security company. But unfortunately for them, for this week, they did, or what they didn't do or what they did led to the exposure of over 16,000 PII or sensitive information or sensitive documents from different agencies. So this company, they work for government agencies. They have contracts from government agencies and other corporate institutions in the UK, right? And they are Amazon S3 buckets. I think whoever was configuring it probably didn't put any password or didn't do anything in terms of identity and access management on it. So it was open. Anybody who could have access to it could have access to it. And it exposed 16,000 sensitive information. Now, since, whoever came across it was a good Samaritan. They alerted the company, and they have since closed the S3 bucket. But still, this was I'll say a silly mistake that could have led to a very big issue for the company. So complacency, right? This is a huge company that is doing big contracts, right? So complacency is what can cause such problems, and something as small as this can literally bring the whole company down. Now this company is in the news all over the world, and they are being talked about in cyber chats on the other side of the world because of a very silly mistake, right? So now the next news we are going to look at is Microsoft. So what is Microsoft up to? So Microsoft just released 74 updates to patch their new 74 vulnerabilities that they've discovered in August. So as part of their August patch, they call something Patch Tuesdays. So they released 74 updates, and last month they released, I think, 132 patches, but this month is a bit lower. So every month they release these patches to patch vulnerabilities that has been found, or vulnerabilities that have been found in the Microsoft operating system and other softwares that they have, right? Now, 6 of these out of the 74 were classified as critical when it comes to vulnerability ranking, and 67 were classified as, we will say, high or important, and 1 moderate severity also. So all making a total of 74, right? Now, as part of this patch or updates that they sent out, they also added a defense in depth update, which is what is stated on here, down here, right? And this is the number for this update. And then also a memory integrity system readiness scanning tool. So this will help also keep the integrity of the memory of our systems. This patch, the number is also right here. So this is to let you know. So be on the lookout if you receive this updates on your system, you are using Microsoft. Please do not hesitate to install it, because all patches are sent out not because these companies they are bored and they just want to send you something to install. It's because they are using it to mitigate or to reduce or to cover vulnerabilities that have been found. So to patch these vulnerabilities. Right. So now we are going to move into PCI DSS. Right. Any questions about these cyber news or any comments before we move on? All right. So if there are any questions, I ask you.
There is a comment. Sorry to bring
yes. Go ahead, Fred.
When you're talking of Microsoft sending an update, I think that could also be likened to change management. Is that correct?
Yes. So so for like individual systems like your laptop or mine, because we are individuals, we don't necessarily go by the book when it comes to change or making updates. But within an organization, you just don't simply install updates, right? You have to go through the change management process, and as part of that, most companies, they will first install these updates on a virtual setup, so on a sandbox or something of that nature. If it works fine and nothing happens, then they will push it get approval and push it onto their production. So it falls within patch management, falls under they go hand in hand with change management as
well. Thank you, sir.
Yes. All right. So we are going to jump into PCI. So we are looking at the new version of PCI, which is version 4. But before we do, let's get some background into PCI. So everybody on here who is not familiar with PCI will understand the whole conversation, right? So before we get, to a little bit technical and we lose, anybody who is not familiar with PCI, we are going to make the conversation interesting for everybody. So PCI DSS, if you've never heard about it, is one of the standards or one of the frameworks within cybersecurity that we follow if we want to protect credit card and debit card information that is the standard, the cybersecurity standard that we follow, right? Now, the cards that you see here, you see Visa, Master, everybody has a card in their wallet or in their purse, right? So these cards, who do you think are the owners of these cards, right? You got yours from Bank of America, from Citibank, from all these banks, Wells Fargo, right? But Wells Fargo or none of these banks, although they issue it, they are not the true owners of these cards, right? And although you are holding the card, you are also not the true owner of the card, even though the money on it belongs to you, right? The stickers that you see here, these logos, Visa, Master, American Express, Discover, they are the owners of the card, right? So if somebody steals your card or there's a data breach and attackers are able to, steal a lot of credit card and debit card information and they sell it on the dark web and people are using, if somebody uses your credit card to purchase a ticket to go to Bahamas for holidays and you get to find and you get to know this, you're obviously going to dispute that charge, right? And your bank is going to pay you back. Now, who actually incurs that debt? At the end of the day, when it goes all the way around, it falls back on these folks, the Master, Visa, and those folks, right? So because they are the owners of the cards, they have set forth standards or how we are supposed to protect these cards if we accept them as payments, right? So if your company wants to accept Visa card, MasterCard, or any form of card for payments, then you have to agree that once you accept that data, you are going to keep it in a certain way, right? That will make it safe from attacks. So before PCI DSS, I'm building up to how we came about PCI DSS, right? So all these companies, they are individual companies. Visa, Master, American Express, JCB, and the rest, they are individual companies. So they all had a standard of how they were going to protect their cards, right? So companies that were accepting their cards, they had to follow those cybersecurity standards or information security standards or guidelines to protect data in terms of, card information that they were collecting from their customers, right? So everybody had their own standard. Visa had their own, Master had their own, American Express, they all had their own standards up until 2006, right? So 2006, they all came together and they decided to form a company. And this company was going to be the company that will oversee the making of the standards that we are going to use to protect credit card and debit card moving forward, right? And the company they formed is called PCI SSC. So PCI SSC is payment card industry security standard council, right? So PCI SSC, right? So we just call them PCI Council. So PCI Council was formed 2006, and they started working on a new standard that was going to be an overarching standard that covers, all these cards. So if you're a company accepting credit card or debit card information, you just have to follow that standard. And the standard that they came up with, the first standard from PCI SSC or PCI Council was PCI DSS. So PCI DSS is Payment Card Industry Data Security Standard, right? So this is the genesis of what we are going to be looking at now. Now let's move forward and look at, how, like, the changes since the first, PCI DSS document was made. Now, when we talk about standards, if you're not familiar with standards, or if you're not familiar with cybersecurity framework or information security frameworks, they are just a list of best practices that you have to follow in the organization, right? Now, we are going to get into, is it compulsory or is it mandatory to follow these or not, right? Some standards, they are not mandatory. Some standards are mandatory. PCI is one of those. You have no option but to follow it if you're accepting credit card or debit card customers. Right? So PCI DSS, it applies to any company or every company that accepts credit card or debit card as payments, if they are processing, transmitting, or storing, and these are technical keywords, right? Processing, storing, or transmitting credit card, debit card information, they have to stay in compliance with PCI DSS. So, and PCI DSS, the intent is to be the one overarching standard that is going to help all these card brands, stay on the good side of security. So PCI DSS helps to protect or prevent credit card and debit card frauds. So when the PCI Council was set up, they came up with their first standard, which is the PCI DSS standard. The first version of the standard was in 2006, right? So 2006, the first standard was 1.1, PCI DSS version 1.1. Now in 2008, they improved on that standard. They came up with 1.2, and 1.2 included improvements with wireless wireless issues that version 1.1 didn't address. Now 2009, they came up with a new version 1.2.1, and in 2010, they came up with 2.0. So they are just, as they are bringing up or they are improving upon the standard, right? They are making new versions, and the new versions are an improvement on the old, right? So that is simply what they've been doing all these years. Now, 2013, they came up with 3.0. And in 2015, they came up with 3.1, which was also an improvement, addressing some issues with SSL protocols when it comes to transmitting data, right? And then in 2016, they came up with 3.2, an improvement on 3.1. And that also addresses, new threats within the security industry. And they came up with the latest version before version 4, which is 3.2.1. So that came up in 2018, and they updated this 3.2.1 in 2022, right? They updated some of the documentation, not the main standard, right? So the standard, almost every year, every 2 years, they improve upon the standard, or they add something to it, and they come up with different versions of it. Now, why do they do that? Because the security field, or like technology, is we are at a very fast pace when it comes to technological advancement, right? So this standard is supposed to keep up with what attackers are doing, and where the industry in terms of IT is moving, right? So your standard has to be relevant. If you are an organization that is coming up with information security standards, they have to be relevant, right? So they have to be applicable, right? So you shouldn't be talking about an old version of an old encryption version that is not secured anymore. If you're not improving upon your standard, you are going to miss that. So you are encouraging people to use something that is not safe, right? But if you are improving upon your standard, you are catching up with industry and what is going on. So that is what PCI Council is also doing, right? So the latest version, or the last version that they came up with, is 3.2.1. Now 3.2.1 is going to be in use until March of next year, right? That is where they are going to retire 3.2.1, and what we are going to be using is 4.0. Now 4.0 is still, now 4.0 is in effect, but it is going side on side with 3.2.1 until 3.2.1 is totally retired. And reason being that, organizations will have to, they will need some time to adjust. So when we look at the timelines, you see that organizations were given almost a year and change, almost 2 years, to be able to adjust, and eventually get on board with everything that is required in 4.0. Right. So 4.0, they came up with the new version 4.0 in 2021, right? And they are still fine-tuning some areas of it, although now it is a full-blown standard that we are using. But from 2021 till now, they've made some, big changes, right? So The new and the best that we are going to be using as PCI professionals and cybersecurity professionals is 4.0. Next year, March, it is only going to be 4.0. So that is why we are doing this. You have to know what is going on in the industry, and you have to stay abreast with what is going on. So before we get into 4.0 and the major changes from 3.2.1 to 4.0, as a niche, PCI DSS as a niche within cybersecurity, we are going to look at some of the 10 reasons why, if you want to specialize, this is a good area for you to specialize. Or, if you are in the industry already, in IT already, or in the industry, and you're looking for, a cool place in cybersecurity where, it's fun to be, a lot of dynamic things, going on and very interesting and challenging. Then let's look at some of the reasons. So if you want some reasons why you want to get into PCI, it's an ever-present, it has the ever-present demand, right? Organizations, any organization that process, store, or transmit credit card or debit card information, they have to stay in compliance with PCI DSS. Now, with that being said, it means that these organizations are going to need PCI professionals, right? So because there is the demand is ever growing, we are not going to stop using credit card and debit cards anytime soon, right? Even though in the midst of crypto and the rest, cards are not going anywhere, right? They are not going anywhere. They are here to stay. So as companies accept card payments, they will need to stay in compliance with PCI, and they will need a PCI subject matter expert to help them, to stay in compliance. Now, regulatory aspect of it also. So PCI is mandatory for all companies that accept credit card or debit card. So if they accept, process, transmit, or store, they have to stay in compliance. Even if you are outsourcing that to a third-party company, a different company is doing that for you on your behalf as a company, you have the responsibility of making sure that that company also stays in compliance. So either or, whichever way you go, you still have to stay in compliance, unless, of course, you are not accepting card, you are accepting just cash. So because companies don't have any option, they have to follow, right? That also creates that demand, and that also makes it one of the reasons why, if you want to get into this area, it will be, worth your time and your effort, right? Now, complexity. PCI DSS, some folks, I think I heard somebody say, it's just the requirements, you read them and you just follow. But I know everybody on here who's been in the PCI DSS training, more goes into it than just the 12 requirements and the sub requirements, right? Although that is what you are going to be using, but to interpret it, to be able to know which forms to fill, and all that, a lot goes into PCI. That makes it complex. For organizations, this is a big headache. So mostly they just want somebody who knows what they are doing to handle it, right? So that is why the complexity of it is not as easy and straightforward. So not just anybody can do it. If you know any cybersecurity professional who's been working in the industry for more than 5 years, you can pick their brain on what they know about PCI, right? And see what they know about PCI. If you pick 10 people, probably maybe just 1 or 2, maybe 3 would have heard about PCI, but what really goes into it and what you need for your organization to stay in compliance, they don't know, right? So this is an area that is not open and very common, and because of the complex nature of it, organizations, they will need somebody with expertise to help with them staying in compliance with this standard, right? Now, lucrative opportunity, because of the high demand, low supply of PCI professionals. Obviously, PCI professionals, they command higher salaries in this field. Now, in cybersecurity in general, cybersecurity professionals command higher salaries, but PCI is also a niche within cybersecurity, so that makes it, even a bit higher than the normal average cybersecurity professional, right? Business trust. If your company is in compliance with PCI DSS, your partners and stakeholders and other third parties that want to work with you, you have that trust, right? As part of third party risk management that, your company will undergo if you want to work with any other companies, looking at their PCI DSS compliance is one of the requirements for third party risk management if they have to stay in compliance with PCI, right? So as a PCI DSS professional, you are helping not just safeguard, their credit card and debit card data, but you're also helping to build a good reputation for your company. And then also broad applicability. PCI DSS has a wider reach, right? It doesn't apply to only your local area or just the United States or any company that accepts credit card, debit card around the world. It's just this one standard that everybody has to follow, right? So unlike other frameworks like HIPAA applies only to the United States. RMF applies only to government, even within the United States, it applies only to government agencies, right? PCI applies to everybody, government, corporate, country, name it. Wherever you are accepting credit, debit cards, you have to stay in compliance with PCI DSS. Now, we are going to look at the last reason, and then we'll move forward. So the dynamic nature of it also as well, PCI DSS has a lot of, great challenges, and it's a fun, field to work in because it always presents something new. It's an ever-evolving field. An example, we are moving from 3.2.1 to 4.0. There are a lot of fun changes that you have to help your company to adjust to. So it's a great area for you to learn and grow, right? A great area for you to learn and grow. Now, global relevance, we've talked about that. And then also networking, PCI DSS, or within the PCI community is a very, very niche, small niche, and very tight community. There's a lot of opportunities. You're able to network and meet some really good people. An example, the PCI community meeting that is coming up in Portland, that is a great place for you to also network, right? But working within the industry, you are going to work with almost everybody within the organization, right? So from IT, from DevOps, from HR, if you are the PCI subject matter expert within the company, you have the opportunity to work with cross-functional teams as well. And then also PCI DSS is a high visibility activity within the organization, right? If your company fails PCI DSS, guess who is going to know about it? Everybody in the C-suite, your CEO, everybody is going to know about this, right? So they don't take it lightly. So if you are the PCI DSS guy or girl, right, and you are helping your company to stay in compliance and you pass your assessment all the time, you are a rock star within that company. Right? They can't do without you. If they have to lay people off, guess who is not going anywhere? You. Because if they lay you off, then guess what is going to happen? Obviously, they are going to fail the assessment, and they don't want that, right? Because that is where the money is coming from, right? Through credit cards and debit cards, that is where they accept payments. So that is where, like the blood of the company, is from. So, so these are some of the reasons that you might want to get into PCI DSS, and then also the knowledge and skill you are acquiring in terms of doing audits, internal audits, and everything that you are learning, they are easily applicable to some other frameworks that are easy to use, right? So you have that opportunity to also specialize in other compliance areas as well, in addition to PC. So we are going to move into a very innovative invention. I wouldn't say it's not necessarily an invention, but an innovative idea that PCI Council has, outdoored. So yesterday, is when they actually outdoored the PCI Community Job Board. So mostly to search for PCI jobs, just like any other cybersecurity job, they are posted in the general job boards. So Indeed, LinkedIn, name it, Glassdoor, and the rest. Now PCI has created their own job board where all the jobs that are going to be posted on there, they are going to be PCI jobs, right? So I think they just open this up. So they have like 5 or 6 job postings, but give it like 2 weeks, a month, there's going to be a flood of PCI jobs on there. Now, why this is a very innovative idea, or like this is a very good initiative, is that PCI has all these companies that are staying in compliance with around the world that are staying in compliance with PCI DSS, right? And they need PCI professionals, but where are you going to find the PCI professionals, right? So why not create a platform where PCI professionals or security professionals who are looking for PCI jobs and companies who are looking for PCI subject matter experts can meet at a common place and find themselves. Right? So I think this is an excellent idea. We are going to look at the site actually, and look at what they've posted on there since yesterday, right? And then we will touch on 2 other things before we come back to the slides, right? So please hold tight. We are going to share screen and look at this site real quick. All right, so this is this is the speaking board. So this is the right here. Hopefully my screen, as I'm moving between tabs, you are still able to see, right? So this is the PCI committee. If you go to PCI's website, PCI Council's website, PCI community board, a job board. Now, when you come down here, job seekers and also job posters. So companies, if you want to post a job, you can easily, post. I think they charge like $350 for a post for 45 days. And for job seekers, you just click on job seekers. It is going to take you to the page where they have the job. So they just posted this yesterday. So these companies beat everybody to it. They have a company from the UK, British Telecom. They have Mega Plant. This is one of the big players in PCI. They have PCI itself has posted 2 jobs, right? So I think if we give it like maybe 1 month, there will be a whole list of jobs on here, as more companies are getting used to, or they are getting to know about this, right? So this is a very good initiative for all PCI professionals and cybersecurity professionals who want to branch into PCI. Now you have a common place to come, search for this. And with that, since we are on this page, we're also going to talk about something briefly before we move out of here, right? So for ahead of our slides, we are going to look at PCI QSA companies. If you want a QSA company that can help your company with the switching from PCI version 3.2.1 to version 4, on PCI's website, they've listed all companies that has gone through the version 4 training and have passed, right? And that are qualified to do version 4 assessment. We are going to look at that list here shortly. And then also, I think almost everybody on here, we posted this. So I'll be speaking at the PCI Community Council in Portland. So come support if you live around Portland or Washington State area, Portland, Oregon. So I'm in the second in the shoot on here. So come support. It's going to be a fun. Mostly these are like huge events. They organize it in like a stadium, or I think it's a stadium sort of all big place, right? And they have all big players within the industry coming there to listen and to talk and share ideas, right? So let's jump into PCI, looking for PCI qualified professionals, right? And then also, before we jump into that, I know I'm kind of getting into other areas. If you want any information about PCI, you go to PCI resources. It has everything that is open to the public on here, right? There are some things that are not open to the public that are for QSAs and other assessors, but all general information like what we are going to be talking about now, the change summary for PCI version 3 to version 4, all of that, all those documents are on here that you can download for free. The actual version 4 document itself, if you go to resources, you go to document library, you'll be able to find all that information on there. Right? But now we are going to look at companies that are qualified. assessors, QSA companies that are qualified to do version 3, version 4 assessments, right? So if you come to this page, and also for, I think we've looked at this twice during Cyber Chat, if you want to check any PCI professional out in terms of certification, it's easy. You can just come here and check. So you can check the companies out. You can check the PCI professional himself. So if somebody's a QSA, ISA, ASV, you can check them out on here. And if in your company you are looking for a QSA company, you are looking for an ASV to come do any work for you, this is where you come to check. Now for our PCI students, everybody is familiar with this. But we are just going to do this small, short, quick demonstration for everybody. So for PCI companies, for QSA companies in the world, in the whole entire world, there are 397 QSA companies, right? Now this is the list. You can go down the list, or you can search the companies here and see which companies. So mostly I like to use Eretmis as an example. So Eretmis Inc., if your name is in there, it's going to populate. Now, if it pops up, you see this on here, the double star, right? So if Eretmis wasn't qualified to conduct version 4 assessments, you wouldn't see this, right? If Eretmis is qualified to do version 4 assessment because we've gone through the version 4 training and we've certified as a company and as QSAs, so that is why you have this on here, right? So if now for the transition, if your company is looking for somebody to help them with, a transition strategy to be able to get, have a plan for moving from version 3 2.1 to version 4. I mean, if you come down here to go through the list, you'll be able to see companies that are qualified to do this. So the whole list, you can go through the list and you know where to find this. So all these companies, they are all qualified to do version 4 assessments. The ones that are not qualified, you are not going to see these in front of their names. So we are going to move on. And then I think that was it. There's, okay, so the job board, and we talked about everything that we want to talk about here. So we are going to move forward. Right, so we are jumping back into where we left off slides, and we will, right, so we talked about the job board. So our next PCI class live session is starting on the 24th. So if you are interested or you have friends who are interested, you can, we are going to post the link in there after the chat. And with that, we are going to jump into PCI version 3.2.1 and version 4. Some of the main or key changes and the fun ones as well. We are going to move forward with that and look at that. So the changes, the main changes between version 3.2.1 and version 4, they have been categorized into 3 main big changes, right? So we call them evolving requirements, we call them guidance, and then we also call them structure or format. So with the evolving requirements, there are changes that ensure that the PCI standard is keeping up with emerging threats and technology or technologies, right, within the industry. Right? So, for example, a typical example, if you are familiar with PCI DSS requirements, the old version 3.2.1 for requirement 1, it was talking about we have to make sure that we have firewalls and routers installed on our networks, right? But in today's technological advancement, we don't only use routers and firewalls to protect our network. So they've changed the wording instead of just routers and firewalls, because that is limiting. You are limiting companies if you just say routers and firewalls. There are a whole list of other tools and solutions that we use, right? So they've just changed that to security controls, just to generalize it. So it's an example of an evolving requirement, right? So that change, we will call that change as an evolving requirement. Now, when it comes to clarification and guidance, there are some requirements that, so before I get into the requirements, now we are getting a bit technical here. For folks who are not familiar with PCI, when we talk about requirements, right, it's just the name that we give to a list of best practices that organizations will have to, follow, right? So the requirements, it is just a name. Some frameworks will call it controls. We call it requirements in PCI. So if you're not familiar with it, that is, when we say requirements, is just a PCI technical term for controls or whatever you want to call it. So there are some requirements that needed clarification. So an example, some requirements, and some of it, like the wording, had to be changed. So an example, still looking at requirements 1 and 2, when we talk about cardholder data, doing anything to protect cardholder data. Now, if you dive a bit deeper into PCI, you know that cardholder data is a subset of account data, right? So instead of now saying cardholder data, we say account data because we want to make it holistic. We also want to protect our SAD, which is our sensitive authentication data as well, right? So it's not, so these are some of the changes. So such a change will be classified as a clarification, right? One of the changes in terms of wording and explanation. And then we have structure and format, right? So there are some requirements that have been changed from, if it was a sub requirement under requirement 2, it has been changed and it has been moved down to requirement 12 as a sub requirement under requirement 12. So those changes, we will call them structure or format changes. So the numbering has been changed, renumbering, so these are the 3 major changes that were made to the old version to get the new version. Right? So with that out of the way, now anybody who knows PCI, you know that we have 12 goals and we have 6 goals and 12 requirements. Those have not changed, right? Those have not changed. So we still have the old 6 and the 12. Now there are some changes in terms of wording and all that, but the numbers have not changed. And the sub requirements, all of them are still there as in the old version. Now we also have another change, really big change. For the old PCI version, which is 3.2.1, like other frameworks, everything that we do has been set forth, is laid out for us. So if you have to make sure your password is 7 characters, it is set in stone. You have to make sure your password is 7 characters. Now PCI is coming up with something new. And I've not seen any standard or any requirements, any standard or any framework that has this except PCI. Now, what PCI is doing is that for some of the requirements or for some of the controls, for those who are more familiar with other frameworks, for some of the requirements or some of the controls, and not all of it, for some of it, PCI allows you to choose how you want to do it, right? So, I mean, like ones that are rigid, like your password have to be 7 characters. I mean, those ones, like we just leave it as that. Now, there are some that PCI opens it up. So an example, if you want to implement, maybe the original requirement is to implement secure cryptography. You are at liberty to do it any way you want, right? The goal is to make sure you are meeting the intent of the requirements. So we have 2 ways that we can meet PCI DSS compliance requirements. One way is the old way that we call defined approach, right? So defined approach is the old way. It is set in stone. You have to follow it this way. That is how you follow it. And we have another approach now, a new approach that is called customized approach. So with customized approach, you are at liberty, or there's that flexibility for you to use other ways and techniques to be able to achieve the same level of security, right? So if maybe PCI wanted you to use multi-factor authentication and you don't want to use that, you think you have something better, you can use the something better you have but then there are some, documentation that you have to, go through in terms of risk assessment and all that to prove that what you are using also meets the original security goal, right? So we have the defined approach and the customized approach, right? So, and it's only PCI that is coming up with the customized approach that allows the folks that are being assessed or the companies to really come up with their own security concepts to be able to still meet the original intent of the requirements, right? So which I think is pretty cool, but and then also for the customized approach, now the question here is, okay, so as an assessor, if a QSA is coming in to assess you, if you're using the defined approach, right, it says do this and you do that. For the QSA, they also have a checklist that they are following. Their checklist also tells them exactly how they are supposed to grade you, if you want to look at it that way. So look at it more this way. It's like you are doing an exam, right? You are writing an exam. There is the grading rubric based on which your teacher is going to grade you. Now, your teacher is the assessor or the auditor or the QSA, right? Now, for you as a student, they are looking for some specific answers. That is with a defined approach, right? Now, with a customized approach, you are at liberty to come up with your own concepts and do your own thing. But now, whoever is grading you, they don't have any grading rubric. They have to base their grading rubric on what you've done. So look at what you've done, try to understand it, and then they'll go make their own grading rubric, right? So that kind of sounds funny, but it's funny. And it's not funny because it's funny not because it's not doable, but it's new. So we don't really know how that is going to go, right? So PCI, is taking a really bold step with this, but because that leaves a lot of room for, some fun stuff for both the companies that are doing the customized approach and the assessor who is doing the assessment. Now, customized approach is not for everybody. If your company's security posture is almost, nothing to write home about, don't even try customized approach. This is mostly for companies that are more matured in terms of security, right? So for diving really deep into all these, for our PCI students, when we do the version 4 big class, we are going to dive more deep into this, right? But here we are not going to bore everybody with too much of technicalities into this. So when you want to go the customized approach route, you have to do something that we call targeted risk analysis. So targeted risk analysis is for customized approach, and then also for we do it so you do it for customized approach, and then also if you are going with a customized approach, you have to do it on regular basis to make sure that the approach you are using is still valid, right? And then also one big change in the requirements is also roles and responsibilities. So roles and responsibilities were there in 3.2.1, but it wasn't really formalized, right? So it is being formalized now. Now we are going to move forward and look at some of the fun changes a little bit in depth, and we will be on our way to wrap it up, right? So if there are any questions, you can raise your virtual hand as we are moving forward. But and also for PADSS, Payment Application Data Security Standard, it has changed, right? They have changed that to PCI software standard, right? And the software standard has also been changed to software security framework, right? So when they came up with this, it was a software standard, PCI software standard. They changed that to PCI. So like when I was talking about the changes, even with the new version 4, they are still fine-tuning some areas there, right? So we are going to move forward and look at some of the fun changes in the requirements themselves and the sub-requirements. So formalized annual scoping exercise. For folks who are familiar with IT audits or cybersecurity audits or with PCI, you know that scoping, everything starts with scoping, right? You have to scope, perform your scope or identify your scope before we can do the assessment. On the side of the person or the company getting assessed, on the side of the implementer or the internal security assessor, or the PCI subject matter expert within that company, you know that as part of your own internal assessment, you have to identify your scope, validate your scope, and do everything. Right? Now, scoping in the old PCI version, which is 3.2.1, it was mentioned, is something that is very important we have to do, but it wasn't formalized, right? So for companies, they have to define their own scope, but that wasn't stated, like that wasn't like a formal requirement that was part of the checklist. We just, as an assessor, I'll have to validate the scope, but for the company to define their scope or to do their annual scoping exercise, it wasn't formalized. Now version 4 has formalized it, right? So in version 4, the company, as part of the version 4 requirements, is a requirement. They have to formally do a formal annual scoping exercise, right, which is good. So this is one of the big changes. So for PCI students and PCI professionals who are working now, if you are not familiar or you didn't know this is a change coming up, it is, and which is for the better, right? Is for it is formalizing this to make it official. So, I mean, that is how we are just going to talk about it. Now we will dive more into it for our PCI students when we get into version 4 makeup class. Now, when it comes to authentication requirements, password authentication requirements has changed. So from version 3, the maximum or the minimum password characters was 7 characters. Now for this new version, version 4, it has changed to 12. And reason being that when PCI version 3.2.1 was made, within the cybersecurity industry, within the information security industry, for best practices, when it comes to password length, it was 7 characters, right? So that is why it is prudent for these companies that are coming up with the standards to make sure they are keeping up with industry best practices, right? So if PCI didn't come up with version 4 and they were still hanging on to dear life on version 3.2.1, now they are encouraging people to use 7 characters, and 7 characters is no good. Now it's no good because it can easily be breached with a brute force attack, right? Now 12 characters, even with 12, this is the minimum. So if you are taking security seriously within your company, you can even make it more characters than 12. We'll make it 50. I know, like in the army, they way back, I think they are way ahead of the curve, because way back, like almost 18 years, 15 years, the army's minimum character for passwords was 15. Everybody used to like complain and scream and kick, but yes, you are going to create 15 characters, right? And now the industry is up to 12. I don't know, maybe probably now the army is up to like 54 characters. Just kidding. I don't think in password is going to be 54 characters, right? But so let's move on to complexity, password complexity. So numeric and alphabetical, yes, that even with the old one, still the same. Lockout requirements, no more than 10 failed attempts. Previously, it was 6. I don't know why they made it 10. I think it should even be 5, right? What this means is that if somebody tries to, if somebody gets your password wrong, in the previous requirements, if somebody gets your password wrong 6 times, your system will automatically shut them out for maybe 30 minutes for whatever time that we set, right? Now they changed that to 10, so they have to try 10 times before they are logged out, which I think for that one, I bet to differ on this one. It should probably be less, right? But it's above my pay grade, so we are just going to move on. Now, minimum lockout duration. So if somebody tries your password so many times and they get it wrong and they get logged out after the 10th attempt, how long should it take before the system allows them to be able to guess the password again? 30 minutes, right? For the old requirement, it was still 30 minutes. So they didn't change anything with that. Now, password expiration date is 90 days. So how long should you change your password? Should you have your password before you change it? Is 90 days. This didn't change from the old version of PCI DSS. It was 90. Now there's an asterisk here, and I'm going to explain this real quick. So the asterisk here, what it means is that in the new version of PCI, which is version 4, if you are using multi-factor authentication in addition to your password, you don't have to change your password every 90 days. That is one change, right? So, and the idea behind that is that multi-factor authentication is also another layer of security you are putting in place. So your password is not going to be your only line of defense. So if you are, you need your password and you need to use your fingerprints or you need facial recognition, then there is no need to change your password, which also above my pay grade, but I think just to put layers of security in place, I will still change the password anyways, right? But they are giving that, flexibility to companies to do that. Now, probably that is also a way to encourage companies to use multi-factor authentication also. So maybe, that is the idea behind it, right? Now, password history, how many passwords can you use before you can go back to your original password that you started with? 4. And in the old requirement, in the old PCI DSS standard, it was 4. So that hasn't changed, right? So now we are going to move into multi-factor authentication requirements. So multi-factor authentication, PCI DSS version 4 adds clarification to multi-factor authentication for remote access. Now, previously in version 3.2.1, there was a requirement that spoke about remote access. So if you wanted to have remote access, it just stated that there had to be a policy in place that was restricting or that made sure that we had one, we were using a secure protocol, and then 2, we were authenticating, or we had measures in place to authenticate whoever is trying to have the remote access, right? They didn't specifically, or it didn't require you to have multi-factor authentication. Now it is stating categorically that you have to have multi-factor authentication for remote access outside your cardholder data environment. Now, if you are not familiar with PCI, don't get overwhelmed with all these terminologies. It's just a language. If you get into PCI, you understand it. Right now, multi-factor authentication is not a PCI language. It's a cybersecurity language. So if you're in cybersecurity, MFA, everybody should know what that is. Now let's move into risk assessment. So risk assessment, now we have what we call the targeted risk analysis. And the targeted risk analysis, we spoke about it briefly because of the introduction of the customized approach, right? So if companies are allowed to come up with their own way that they want to meet the requirements, then we have to do targeted risk analysis, right? So unlike previously in version 3.2.1, where we just did our normal annual risk assessment and all that, now we do the targeted risk analysis, and then we also do this on regular basis. When we also do our annual still, but then this is an added something that we do for risk assessment, which is also good, because there's nothing like too much security, right? I mean, in some instances, it can be too much security, but for the intent of what we are doing here with the customized approach, I think this is a step in the right direction. Now, ownership roles and responsibilities. So this was also a thing in version 3.2.1, but it wasn't formalized. Right now, version 4 formalizes this, and what version 4 is saying is that there should be a proper documentation on who is responsible for what. And this has to be formally documented. Roles and responsibilities should be assigned, and owners of systems and data should understand their roles and responsibilities, right? So this, and I know in like our PCI class, we talked about roles and responsibilities, and we even had that chat in the internship for roles and responsibilities, but it wasn't set in stone. But now it is set in stone, hard stone. So you have to document, and as part of whatever SOP or policy that you're going to have, there's going to be a list of individuals who are responsible for different items when it comes to cardholder, keeping your cardholder data, right? Now we move into encryption. So with the hashing that was used to render our PAN, that is, so PAN here simply, if you're not familiar with PCI, it's just the 16 digits that you have on your credit card, those numbers, or your credit card number or debit card number. So it's 16 for other cards, is 15 for, I think, Discover and American Express, right? So the 16 or 15 digits is what we call primary account number, so PAN, right? So if you are not familiar with PCI, don't get too carried away, or don't let us bore you with all these terminologies, but it's just a language, right? So previously, when we were rendering, or when we had to make our PAN unreadable, we chose to, hash some part of it and not all of it. Now we are required, it's a requirement to hash all of it, right? And then also, we are not allowed to use this encryption anymore for data that is being stored at rest. For data that is at rest, we can only use that if the data is being stored on a removable media, right? And we can get into the technicalities and all of that, but we are not going to bore everybody on here. For PCI students, we are going to bore you with this when we get there, right? Now, antivirus and malware, and then we'll look at public-facing web applications. And I think there's only another change. So these are not all the changes, right? We are just highlighting some of the ones that will be of interest to everybody, right? So for antivirus requirements, now is more flexible based on the targeted risk assessment of the organization. So based on what the organization is doing, they are at liberty to, how they are going to go about the antivirus requirement to be based on their targeted risk assessments. Our public-facing web applications, PCI DSS version 4 requires deployment of automated technical solutions that will continuously detect, prevent web-based applications. Now, previously, we were supposed to still do this, but it wasn't set in stone, or it wasn't a hard requirement, right? It was more so if you do it, it's good. But now it's a hard requirement that we have to meet. Now, the last one that we will look at in terms of some of the major changes is internal security scans. So internal security scans, they must be authenticated unless the device being scanned does not accept credentials. Now, all internal scans should be authenticated anyways, but not all the time, right? Previously, we are still doing internal scans, but it wasn't set in stone that for your internal scans, it has to be authenticated. But now it is a requirement. It has been set in stone. We have to do that. So these are some of the fun changes in the new version of PCI version 4, right? So the differences between version 3.2.1 and version 4, right? So there are more, way more. I think there's like 67, 64 major changes when it comes to the requirements, right? But these are some of the fun ones that are, that everybody can relate to. So that is why we chose this. Now, the goals for this new version of PCI DSS is to promote security as a continuous process and also enhance validation methods and procedures. And then also to add some flexibility. So we saw that we have a customized approach now. So the flexibility, it comes with a lot of responsibility as well, right? And then also the last goal here is to ensure that standards, they continue to meet the security needs of the payment industry. So let's quickly look at the timeline for the implementation of the new PCI DSS version 4. So the timelines, we are just going to go straight to the figure that we have here on the diagram. Now, they started, the official release was in the first quarter of 2022, right? That is when they released the first document for PCI version 4. Now, the training for QSAs and ISAs, and the training began in the second quarter of 2022. And we jumped all the way down here. So 31st March 2024, next year is when PCI DSS version 3.2.1 will officially be retired. So now we are using PCI version 3.2.1 and version 4 alongside each other. So companies can choose to stay in compliance with the version 4, or they can choose to stay in compliance with version 3.2.1. By 31st March 2024, you don't have that choice anymore. After 31st March 2024, you have to stay in compliance with version 4, right? So from when it was, the first quarter was when of 2022 was when they brought this up. They gave organizations up to what? Almost 2 years to be able to adjust themselves. And even with that, they still have, they are still giving some more of a leeway. Now, when you go down the version, like when you go through the PCI DSS version 4 document, right, there are some items on there that are considered best practices from 2024, March 2024 till March 31st March 2025. Now, between this period, most of those items, they will be considered as best practice or nice to have or just try it. After 2025, those are going to be hard requirements. So they are not nice to have anymore. You should follow them, right? So still, giving some leeway for companies to be able to adjust, because it's not an easy change, right? If you look at the changes from version 4 to version 3 to version 4, it's not an easy change. So some companies will have to purchase, new systems, new software. They have to reorient themselves and how they operate and how they function. So they need time to plan this, and they need help of PCI professionals to help them, stay in compliance. So this is the timeline, right, for the transition. So same goes for PCI professionals or aspiring PCI professionals. You know that by 2024, moving forward, we'll be using version 4 only. So you have to, now with the understanding of version 3.2.1, move into version 4 and become a subject matter expert as well. So everything on here is what we looked at. Now for the PCI DSS professional or for cybersecurity professionals who want to work within the PCI space, what do they have to do in terms of this transition, right? So transitioning from version 3.2.1 to version 4, what are some of the things that you can do to help your company, to help yourself, position yourself in a better spot, right? So first, assessment and gap analysis. Now for folks who've gone through either our internship or the PCI DSS internship, or a normal cybersecurity internship, when it comes to assessment and gap analysis, you know what we are talking about, right? So we have to identify where we are, and we know where we want to get to, which is version 4. So identify where we are, do an assessment, and then identify the gaps. So when we close those gaps, we'll be able to get to version 4, right? Just like traveling from New York to Virginia, right? If you plug in your address in Virginia, that is where you want to get to. Now it will show you where you are. The distance between where you are and where you want to get to is the gap. So the gap analysis, what we do is, now you are going to take some courses of action. Am I going to go this route or go that route? Your GPS will sometimes give you like 3 routes. Those are 3 different courses of action, right? So how are we going to get there? Are we going to stop every 2 hours to take a break? Are we going to, so the plan that you come up with, that analysis that you are doing is what we call the gap analysis, right? So for PCI professionals and cybersecurity professionals in the PCI space, this is one of the things or some of the things that you're going to be doing for the transition, right? And you know, even aside the transition, in whichever version you find yourself, when you are doing your internal assessment, you are still doing assessment and gap analysis. Now we'll look at security strategy development. Every company needs a strategy moving from version 3.2.1 to version 4. So as a security professional, you are going to be the one coming up with this strategy, and you have to tailor it to the company to make sure it meets the needs of the company, and the company will be able to easily transition from where they are to where they can meet version 4 or stay in compliance with version 4. Right? Now, training and awareness is very key, right? Everything that we looked at, the gap analysis and all that is good, but training and awareness is big. That is where you make your money, right? So you have to train your staff, you have to train your security folks, your IT folks, you have to train management on the new changes and the implications to your organization, right? So training and awareness is key. So education, training and awareness, creating awareness that version 4 is coming. What are we doing about it? And, you know, the role that everybody has to play, right? And the changes that are coming, you have to make that very clear to everybody. Continuous monitoring and reporting. So version 4, PCI version 4, one of the main goals is continuous monitoring and reporting, right? And then also treating PCI as business as usual, right? So continuous monitoring is something that we have to do regardless in PCI. So this is something that you're also going to be doing as PCI subject matter expert or cybersecurity professional, helping your organization to move from version 3.2 to version 4, right? Now, customized implementation. We talked about the customized approach. Now, there's a time for you and your, either your compliance team together with your IT folks and your network folks to sit down and come up with strategies on which, depending on the maturity level of your company in terms of security maturity, if you are going to go with customized approach on the requirements that allow customized approach, or you are just going to simply go with the defined approach, right? Now, the defined approach is simple, straightforward, easy. Customized approach, a bit complex, right? So if you are not able to meet the defined approach and you think customized approach is going to be easier, then you probably have to think again, because it is by no means going to be easier than the defined approach, right? That doesn't also mean if your company has a better option to meet the same security needs, I mean, why not use it, right? So that is the end of what you can do, and by no means all of it, right? But at least we have to get to some stopping point. Other than that, I can talk about PCI all night. So our new class, PCI class, is starting on the 24th. For us, PCI, your career path, you start with our free course, PCI DSS for beginners, and then you move into expert, or you move into specialist or expert. And this is what we cover in these courses, and there's way more than. So we start you off with a crash course, cybersecurity crash course, so at least give some background to everybody moving into it, because PCI is a specialized area in cybersecurity. So you need some good foundation in cybersecurity before we move on. So whether you're in cybersecurity already or you are in IT, the crash course at least gives you some leverage going into it, right? So if you're interested in that, these are some of the payment options that we have. You can do one-time payments, you can do installment payments, you can, for installment payments in-house, we allow up to 8 months. You can do financing, zero down payment financing through Meritize. You can do installment income sharing agreement with MayaShare, and then also now we have Affirm and Afterpay. They do lend now and pay later. So you can also, go through them. And with them, they have like very low installment payments, some as low as like 130, 140 bucks a month for, any of these. So for our specialist is 5,500, for our expert is 7,500 with all those payments. And then also this month, we are starting our new cybersecurity workshop and internship. That is also starting on the 26th. So for folks who already, if you're already in the cybersecurity entry-level course, you are already part of the internship and workshop coming up. If you've not taken part in one previously, so you don't have to pay for this, right? It's part of the whole package. If you are not a student in the entry level and you've had your training elsewhere and you want real hands-on training, work on real cybersecurity projects that you can speak to during interviews, this is an avenue for you to do that. And you're also going to learn some soft skills alongside, and that is also going to help you. You'll be working in teams and in groups, so that is a good option for folks who want to go that route. So it's a workshop for students, for non-students, and it's an internship for students. Right now, financial options similar to the PCI one. So this is starting on the 24th. This starts on the 26th on a Saturday. Right. So any questions, comments, concerns, we are going to look at that here briefly. But this, if you want to, everything that we put on here, Eretmis Academy, if you go to our website, is there. And then also we are transmitting on YouTube live. So before we post the replay, you can, get the live session that was streamed on YouTube as well. So we are wrapping it up. I appreciate everybody's time. Now we are going to open the floor for questions. And we had some comments in the comment session. So I think Captain AJ was on here. If Captain AJ can go through the comments session, he can read through this briefly for us. Whilst, we open the floor for questions. So if there are any questions, please raise your virtual hand and we'll be able to address it. And we are almost at the starting point. Go ahead, Jason.
Okay, Doc. Recently I've been having a conversation based on the advancements of ChatGPT, Claude, Bard, and Google AI. So the point was said that with the advancement, the higher tier jobs would go first because the AI would be skilled enough to do them. And then the manual jobs such as plumbing, construction work, all of those would be safe. So for me and for everyone else here, how safe is PCI DSS now?
Okay, so
In your opinion?
this is how safe, and not just PCI DSS, but with all other frameworks and all other areas of cybersecurity. It is more of a manual work than plumbing and construction. So meaning AI cannot do it, right? AI cannot do analysis. AI cannot interview people. AI cannot. So a lot goes into this. So sometimes we just kind of overrate AI, right? AI cannot do something that requires human input, frankly. Now we have, we are flying planes that can land and fly themselves, but we still need people in there, right? You are driving a Tesla. If you are in an area where it can drive by itself, that's fine, but I wouldn't be comfortable sleeping if I know the car is just driving by itself. So you still have to be on the lookout, right? AI is there to help us, but is by no means going to take our jobs when it comes, especially when it comes to security, right? Cybersecurity, any area of cybersecurity or information security, AI. When it comes to coding and those areas, I get it. And even with that, at a certain level, AI cannot take over. AI can do it to a certain point, right? But not, because what people don't get is, or what where they are missing to connect the dots is AI can do the scan. AI can do all that, but who is going to analyze the scan? Who is going to come up with, related to the company's objective, or the company's business governance, to be able to come up with, good decisions, or to make good decisions based on the company's resources and stuff like that. That is you, right? So AI can help, but it's by no means going to take over the job of anybody on here or anybody in security.
Understood. Thank you, Doc.
Yes. and like when it comes to some of these, you know, like you are doing a lot of manual labor, but you are not digging, so you wouldn't see, but a lot of manual labor with your brain, right? So you have to go through, it's tedious, a lot of attention to detail, good communication skills to be able to interact with, you know, almost everybody and their mom. Some people are not playing ball, so you have to chase them around and keep your cool. So, you know, like there's a lot that goes on in this field also as well. So go ahead, John.
Hi, thanks, Doc. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yes. A friend referred me to your presentation. Very, very informative. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'm a custom broker. Logistics, custom brokerage, compliance. That's my field. I've been in for over 20 years. I'm looking to transition to IT field. Now, I don't know where to start. So if you can advise me
Point you in the right direction. Okay. Yeah. So John, I think for yours, we can probably talk offline because
Okay.
We have to dig a little bit more into, you said you were doing compliance, so we have to dig more into what you are doing and see where we can easily leverage you in the security side or IT side. And then also see what you want to do. So mostly with this, some folks will just they wouldn't really do their research and jump into one area or the other, and then later they're like, it's not something that I'm really passionate about, and then they quit. Like you don't want to be hopping around from one place to the other, right? So you have to at least have that commitment, because it's going to get to a point where you have to dig deep, right? Because things are not going to come easy. It's a new language you are going to be learning, totally different from where you are coming from. So there's going to be a little frustrations here and there, right? But if you know and you are very convinced about what you're doing, those are the folks who are able to succeed easily, right? Than the ones who are just maybe chasing it because of just the money, right? Because then you're going to get stuck in the middle of it. So our contacts have been posted in there. You can email, and contacts are in there, so you can take that and reach out on the backside, and we can.
Sounds good. Thank you.
All right. You're welcome. Go ahead, Emmanuel. You are muted. You are still muted. Okay, so I think Emmanuel is still. Oh, and also tomorrow, our interns, our cybersecurity interns, they are graduating tomorrow in the morning at 10. So the link will be posted for everybody to come join us and celebrate them. So if you have time tomorrow at 10, please do. We are going to post it in here also as well. So Emmanuel is still having issues. So Tiwana, you can go.
Hello. I wanted to let you know that I had an interview one day this week. It's been so busy this week. Yes. And, just as you said, our soft skills come into play, and that we have to be prepared for whatever happens during the interview. It's a contract to hire role, and the agency that sent me for the interview either sent me the wrong job description or the needs changed before the interview. So I got one job description, say 3 days before the interview, and then the night before, I got a different job description. The first one was more like a program manager, guiding day-to-day GRC activities and steering the teams and supporting policy development. But when I got on the call with the hiring manager, it was more about third-party risk management. tiering the vendors and looking at the assessment questionnaire, the security assessment questionnaire for the vendors, and seeing where some efficiencies can be put in place, and then actually doing the assessment work for third parties. So it just took me a minute to kind of shift my thoughts and my answers. But I think I heard you say a couple of weeks ago about just being prepared for anything and looking at the total scope of the company and kind of anticipating what kinds of needs they may have, being ready to answer.
Yes, yes. And then, so I know you are in the internship, June internship. We've not done the third-party risk management project yet, but then at least their initial assessments of organizational security posture and stuff help you on this one.
Absolutely, absolutely, yes. Yeah. And I have a little background, but you
Yes.
know, it just kind of threw me for a loop, but I was able to kind of settle myself and answer. It went very well. I'm waiting for the panel interview to be scheduled. So
Nice. I think you are going to move to the next stage, frankly. But
okay.
Great input. So like I tell everybody, you know, be prepared for anything and everything. Mostly like this is, sometimes it is common. You are even lucky they gave you a new job description. Sometimes you go to the interview and you are just looking at yourself like, am I at the wrong place? Because they gave you this job description and you got there and whoever is interviewing you is like, they didn't get the memo, or whoever gave you the job description gave you the wrong one. Right.
Right. And it'll look
And
like
like,
you aren't skilled or prepared, you know.
yes.
So thanks for just keeping us on our toes.
Yes. Yeah. So you're probably going to be there for like a cybersecurity interview. This guy is talking about DevOps the whole time, and you're like, what is it? Right. That does happen. So I mean, if it happens, don't like beat yourself. It's not your fault. Maybe there's a miscommunication somewhere. So and sometimes if whoever is interviewing you is also in the loop, they'll let you know, sorry, that is not exactly what we are looking for. HR just, you know, being HR. So maybe this is, and they'll try to pick your brain on some of the things that they want to ask you about that you might know of. Right? So some people are gracious like that. So yes,
Yeah.
but thanks for the update.
Oh, one of the questions too was about, you know, with AI kind of being present and some vendors finding a way to use it. How would I count for that in assessments? So I was honest in that I didn't have that background, but I was aware that NIST has come out with AI 100.I, and that I'm familiar with, you know, NIST processes, and that I would do that research and come up to speed with that publication. So that seems to be sufficient.
Oh, great. And one thing that I also want everybody to know is that we like almost everything that we use now has some AI twist to it. So most especially for security professionals, your firewalls, your vulnerability scanning tools, almost all of them have some AI twist to it, right? So anything that has like the next generation firewalls and the rest, they have some AI twist to it. So mostly if they are asking something on those lines, I mean, when you are doing your assessment of like the security posture of an organization, obviously with the risk assessment part, your vulnerability scans and the rest are going to help you do that. And all those border, like they all border on AI. So that is also something that you can look into. So for questions on those lines, you can bring those in, and tools that specifically, you know, portray themselves as using AI, you can, you know, talk about those as well.
Thank you.
All right, Doc, I'm back.
Okay, go ahead.
Emmanuel.
Go ahead,
Yes.
Emmanuel.
So, yes. So my question is, with PCI DSS, do you guys have a software you use to, like, you know, run the audit? You know, because you look at the requirements, and then do you guys use software, or do you guys, you know, because it depends. I mean, I used to, I was once a QA, quality assurance analyst, and sometimes we use like Excel to write, you know, our
what findings, and then we convert them later on. So my question is, do you have um, a software you use to audit, and if so, what kinds of software do you use?
So your biggest tool is Excel. Right now, let me break that down. So you will see most companies parading themselves, Qualys and the rest, we have the PCI tool. Now, no tool is going to do the job for you. You are going to be the one doing the job. Now, what those tools, what they do is this, they just help you to organize your paperwork. So if for maybe requirement 1.1, you need maybe information security policy for the company, it'll, like, you just have a place to upload it, right? Meanwhile, you can simply put that in a folder, label the folder requirement 1, and then under it, you put you label your things, all evidence by the requirements, right? So you can put everything, organize it in a nice folder. Or you can get some higher-end software and you just upload those in there. It's just a place for you to really organize your evidence that you are gathering. But it is not the software that is going to do the assessment for you. So if the company has to implement maybe a multi-factor authentication, you are going to be the one observing and making sure, okay, what factors are they using to actually make up their multi-factor, right? Is it something you have, something you know? So that analysis and everything is going to be done by you to make sure, okay, they did meet the intent, right? So you cannot use any like software to scan and say, oh, they are good, or where you need software is the requirement that is asking about vulnerability scans. So vulnerability scans, obviously, you're going to use a software, but that has to be done by an ASB anyways. And you will have to look at the vulnerability scanning report and make sure that all vulnerabilities that were found have been remediated, right? So, and you are going to also interview people and make sure, okay, how often do you review your firewall configurations, right? Although they gave you paperwork that says they review it every 6 months, you still have to talk to people to confirm. And software cannot be talking to people on your behalf. So you have to learn, or you have to know what you are doing and know how to do it. So software is only to help you gather and organize your documents, but really is not going to do anything else for you. You are the tool, right? Frankly.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. All right, go ahead, Justice, and then Pat.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Edu. Thank you for the opportunity, for always receiving a lot from you. For me, I will be joining the PCI DSS class in August, this August. But my question is, the event that is coming up in Portland. Of course, I know you're speaking, but my thing is, do you think coming there will have any advantage for us as a beginner, and maybe like an eye-opener, maybe in the job search? Let's say you're searching for a job and you're putting up your resume or whatever, and you make a reference to you were at the event. Do you think it's going to positively position us if we are able to make it at the event? What's your takeaway on that?
Okay, so let me break that down. If you are able to attend such events, it's good for you as a security professional, even if not for PCI. It's good to attend such events. Now there's a cost to it, right? The PCI events are not free. So for this one, they have like different tiers and different categories. If you want to have access to everything within the stadium in terms of different vendors and be able to talk to everybody and attend all the conferences and all the speaking engagements in there, it's almost $2,000 for 3 days, right? So there is a cost to it. If you go to their website, you see the different pricing, like the different prices that they have on there, right? So if, I mean, there are some that is up to like 350, some, so like there are different price ranges. So their events are not totally free. It's not, you cannot just show up, right? But if you are able to attend such events, it's good. You get to know, now there's going to be a lot of companies there that are merchant companies and service provider companies that have to stay in compliance with PCI, that will need PCI subject matter experts like yourself. So it's a good place to network and do all that, right? So, but there is a cost to it. So hopefully that helps. Go ahead, Pat.
Thank you, sir.
Yes.
Thank you, Dr. Edu, for the meeting. So talking to somebody just mentioned about a software that can help to do, the job. A few days ago, I saw a company that is they say they have the tool that they're using to help doing the scoping. I was really surprised. They said yes, you can still use the tool and then help you like automate the scoping. Have you ever heard anything like that before?
So for students who are in the PCI who are doing the internship, right? I hope somebody is on here. Now for the scoping, you were given the actual validation document that a QSA is going to use to validate your scope. Going through that, do you think any tool can do your validation of scope or even help identify your scope?
No.
All right, so that's it. Like I'm not even going to talk about that. So whoever is saying that they are just selling whatever they are selling, right? But if you are from the outside, somebody might go, PCI is nothing, it's just 6 goals and 12 requirements, and you just read and understand. But for anybody who's had the privilege to go through the course up to this class internship, you're probably going to be like listening to those people and just smile and just move on about your day, because they don't, they don't know what the heck. So you can't use a tool to identify your scope or to validate your scope.
Yes, actually, I was surprised because I was saying this is not possible to my, because I'm in the program right now. I was saying,
I know
that's really. I was like, this. I was like, with the tool we use, how can you like automate this and then, do the job that we're doing? I was like, I mean, you understand what I'm saying. So anyway, I was just make sure maybe I was saying, as a student, probably we don't know some stuff. Let me just ask, Dr. Edu, maybe he may know something, No,
but so the only tool that will help, will aid in that process is like your card discovery tool, right? So with that, you are just doing a scan to make sure credit card information is not anywhere else that is not like part of your scope. Like that's it. Aside that, interviewing people, because when we are doing scoping, what are we looking at? We are looking at the three main traditional lenses that we use for security: people, technology, and processes, right? How are you going to use any tool to scan people or talk to people? Right?
Yeah.
For technology, yes, I get it. Maybe you are going to scan yourself. I get that piece. Now, for processes, how are you going to use tools to assess processes within the company? Right? And PCI itself, when you take the validation document of a QSA, or even if you are doing your internal assessment, when you are doing validation, there are 3 major areas: people, processes, technology. All areas have, items that you have to, check. So what are you going to use tools to, like the tool cannot, obviously, like that is not the truth. So with such things, and people are just selling things, and people don't know, people don't know what they don't know. So somebody will just jump on it and think, like that's it. But for folks who are privileged to really, know what is going on, you see that, and you are just probably wondering if you are the one who is crazy, or the people who are selling that tool is the ones who are crazy. All right, go ahead, Emmanuel, and we will be about wrapping it up.
All right, thank you once again. So in case maybe you're done with your, with your internship, and now you are in the market looking for a work to do, or maybe you're in the job search, and it's kind of like it's not coming. It's delaying. It's not coming. Do you still accept the students back to do more internship, or maybe what do you recommend them to do? So like maybe after, yeah, they are still not getting job after some time.
So you will still have access to the material and the training. And so during the internship, we meet, we discuss the projects you're going to be working on, and you and your team will go work on the projects. You still have access to all that material in the class and the reporting and everything, right? And then also for like the job search and everything, for everybody on here, if you go through any of the programs, you have the opportunity to make appointment for one-on-one. So if for the job search, it depends, right? Depends on how much you are pushing and how you are going about interviews, but you need to seek for guidance first, right? So anybody on here who will be, oh, I finished internship and it's been maybe 4 months, I can't find a job. I bet you, if you ask them when was the last time you spoke to Dr. Du or made an appointment to discuss this, they will start smiling. Yes.
Yeah.
And if you also ask them, how many jobs did you apply for last week? They will start smiling.
Nice.
Right. So the jobs are not going to come to you. You have to apply and you have to be aggressive about it. And we are here to help. Frankly, for anybody on here who's reached out, hey, I'm going to an interview, I need this, they always get it. And they are the ones who will get jobs within the shortest possible. So if you are not, you are applying for jobs and you are not, getting the results you are getting, please reach out. Let's discuss. Sometimes you have to tweak your resume, or if you get in interviews and you are not moving forward, probably how you are going about your questions and stuff. So we will try and troubleshoot and find out, right? At that point, sometimes it's just individual fine tuning to get you there, right? But in terms of material and everything, you are still going to have it, right? But like you are going to have everything that you had during the class and the process. And for the groups that you're going to be in, you're still going to be in those groups. So we still keep that like class, spirit and the teams still in there. So you can reach out to any of those. They can also help us. Right. Go ahead, George. And so for the internship, for the interns, please, we are using the same link as we normally do for the class. So we are going to post it in here for the interns who are graduating tomorrow, the graduation ceremony. We are using the same link.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Edu. I wanted to lady who was saying hi. Now, a lot of people, especially from India, reach out about this kind of jobs. I don't know what your take is on that, but I sometimes feel skeptical about those kind of recruiters reaching out with those kind of jobs. How do you go about criticizing what is true and what's not true, or what's beneficial or what's not beneficial? Especially maybe they could call in from a call center from India. I don't know what's their true take on when they call people for that kind of office.
Okay, so for like recruiting companies that will be calling. So if I got your question right, like you are going to have some recruiters call you and then they will get your information and you never hear from them again. Is that like what you are?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Or especially I get a lot of people like from DICE, and they'll be calling especially from, and they rush you to sign what is it? Request to represent and all that. I'm like, what is this? Why are you even rushing me? I've not even read the thing, and they call you and they keep calling and calling. That's my issue with them. Yeah.
Let me break it down for you here. So George, if you are working for Eretmis, right, and your job was to call 50 people a day and make sure they sign the document to represent, or like whatever document. That way we'll be able to represent them, or we are a recruiting agency, so we will be pushing that out to get gigs. What do you think you'll be doing? Same thing that they are doing, right? So that is why you don't hear back from them. For them, they want bodies to fill out their list for the day for them to get paid, and that's it. Whether the company really continues with you or not, they really care less. So that is why you're going to have all these calls and, oh yeah, fill this out and send it to me immediately. Ignore them. They are just time wasters.
Okay, that's all I wanted to know.
Yes. They are just time
Thank
wasters.
you very much.
They are just doing it for them to, save their own job. So they are just time wasters. Ignore those people or those folks. Now,
thank you.
Pat, okay. I'm not sure if Pat, like, your hands is up again or if it's from previously.
Yes, was previously, but let me just I was going to raise again, just talking about the same issue my colleague just mentioned. I've been receiving those calls all the time, the same situation. So I was sometimes feeling like maybe the scammers, but sometimes some of them are real, and they're gonna do the good tip to the interview. But most of them, I would say like 80%, just ghosting. We never heard back from them. So, and they just say that just ignore them. Sometimes I feel, oh, maybe if I ignore him, he might probably get me to the interview. So I'm kind of, I don't know your take about that.
So with that, probe a little bit further, right? If they are rushing you to sign anything, then they are one of those. So just ignore them, right? Real recruiters who want to, move you forward, or actually they are not going to rush you to sign anything that same day and the same time they are talking to you.
Got it. Thank you so much. I've been doing that almost every week.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Go ahead, Jason.
Doc, my question was, Malachi put a question in the chat, which is it okay to have you check it and possibly answer?
Yeah, so we're going to go through the chat real quick. So Malachi is asking, is it true PCI was formed in 206, but was not official until 206, 204, but not official until 206. So Malachi, from PCI themselves, what they say is, or what they have on for them, they say PCI was formed in 2006, right? Maybe if the talks or the idea came before 2006 or whatnot, but I think officially on paper, it was formed 2006. So we can have an idea about forming Eretmis Inc. Until we actually submit it to our Secretary of State, it is not formed, right? So maybe if they are referring to they were in talks from 2004, like that is understandable. But officially it's 2006 is when it was formed. So hopefully that answers your question. Now let's go through the chat real quick. That way we answer everybody's questions. So first one, currently in Bismarck. Okay. How do I start the journey into? So Bismarck, regardless of your location, you can still start. The PCI, the class is held on Zoom. So if you have internet, you should be able to start. Matt is asking, as a follow-up to the student that had a snapshot for attending a review of computer security, is there a way you can provide attendance evidence that can be used to? So Matt, if you want attendance evidence, you can let us know. We have the list of everybody who comes. So that is in Zoom. We can easily go there and print it out. If you are part of it, we will give you the attendance evidence that you need to take it to CompTIA to get certified, to get recertified. Secondly, can this be used for other certifications like Azure and AWS? So yes, Matt, if Azure and AWS allows, which I think they do, for continuous education points, you can use it. Yes. And for T's, are these requirements applicable to the entire organization or just application or stuff that store, process, or yes? So T, so T is asking if PCI DSS applies to the whole entire organizational network or the whole entire organization, or just applications and systems that we use for credit card and debit card storage and that. So T, that is why for an assessment or for an audit, we have to define a scope, right? So the scope will set the boundaries for the areas that we are going to audit. So within your company, we have to set up a scope for area where credit card, debit card information, we store, process, or transmit. So that is the area we are going to do the audit on, not the whole entire organization, right? So, but if like we can get into like the technicalities of that. So if within your organization has segmented an area that is called your cardholder data environment, right? That is where the area that, like the demarcated area that is used for storing, processing, or transmitting of cardholder data or credit card or debit card information. And that area has been logically taken out of the entire network. Then during the assessment, we are looking at that area and some other areas that will be in scope. Now, if you've not done segmentation, it means you are checking your whole entire network, because we call that a flat network. It means your whole entire network is in scope, right? So we can get into the technicalities of that. But all things being equal, if your company is doing segmentation, then we are just checking, we will say apps and systems that will touch credit card or debit card information, not your whole entire. So that is for T. Now we move into Natalie. Really appreciate sharing information on PowerPoint. Okay. So Natalie, if you want the presentation, you can reach out. We will give it to you. Don't forget. Okay, YouTube. Okay, so
thank you, Dr. Edo, for that.
Yes, you're welcome.
I'm asking because have something they're asking me to study that. So you putting it out, it's just gonna help me a whole lot. Yeah.
Okay.
Because they're trying to transition to that as well. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Right.
Yeah,
right.
Thank you.
And also for everybody on here, I think Mr. Williams put this here, so I'm going to. So for everybody on our YouTube channel, Mr. Williams is saying, go to the YouTube channel and hit the like button and also subscribe button as well. So on the YouTube channel, that is where we post the recording for this, and we are streaming live on there as well, so everybody can. The Eretmis Academy on YouTube, so you can check that out. The recording is going to be posted. So Olan was asking about that. So John, I think we answered your question. How much is the class? So for the if you go to our website, the prices and everything is on there. For our PCI for expert is 7,500 with different payment and financing options. Specialist is 5,500, and we move to the next question. I used to work in the banking industry. These you're explaining it now makes sense. Okay, images, yes. So thanks for that comment. And all right, so I think we are about a good stopping point. Oh, Malachi says I read the first PCI DSS was formed in 2004. Before it was. Oh, okay. So so maybe if you saw 204, that was probably like a typo, because but I think for the talks, for them to get in talks to really come to conclusion, like the corporate side, things can get a big, things can go a bit sideways. So probably they were in talks for a while before they actually decided to move forward in 2006. But the actual formation was 2006. So nothing came out before 2006. For that, I can, say that effect. So I don't know if that was in the slides, then that was probably like a typo. So, yes. All right, everyone. I appreciate everybody's time. We are way over time. Like I say always, you could have been anywhere else on Friday night, but you chose to be here to share some knowledge and be with the family. We greatly appreciate your time, and we hope you learn something new. And you also have something for your toolbox. Now, for everybody on here, I think I have not mentioned this for a while. We are partners with CompTIA, so if you want to, whether you are a student or not, if you are purchasing any CompTIA, if you want to write any CompTIA exams, we have a 20% discount that we will afford to everybody, right? I think we will announce that more. So that way, this is an extra benefit if you show up to our meetings like this, right? So the 20% we give totally to our students and for everybody else, even if you're not our student. I appreciate everybody's time. We are wrapping up for tonight. George, I think your hand was up previously. We didn't lower it, so I'm not sure if your hand is still up, but I just wanted to make sure before.
Oh, no, that's it. That was the previous answer.
All right, everyone.
That's it.
All right. So tomorrow, come support us. Our interns are graduating. Come support us tomorrow morning at 10. The link will also be sent out via email, so everybody can join and celebrate our interns. I appreciate everybody's time. Have a great weekend. We'll meet again, same time, God willing, Friday night for another educative edition of Cyber Chat. Have a great weekend.
Thank you, Dr. Odu. Is it 10 o'clock, 10 Eastern time?
Yes, 10 Eastern time is graduation.
Okay. I'm waiting for my email.
All right. Your email will be coming soon. Okay.
I'm on fire, man.
All right.
Thank you so much. Yeah, have a nice weekend.
All right, you
Thank you,
too.
Dr. Lu.
All right, everyone. Have a great one.